There is a quiet kind of magic in the air each year when Christmas arrives, a magic we often confuse for decorations, celebrations, or the sweet nostalgia of childhood memories. But beneath the surface of this holiday lies a deeper truth, one rarely spoken about, though it lives in every ancient tradition, spiritual teaching, and human heart. Christmas is not merely a date on the calendar, nor is it limited to a story told long ago in a distant land. It is a metaphor, a cosmic reminder of something profound about the human spirit. At its core, Christmas is about the birth of light in the midst of darkness, the awakening of hope when the world appears cold, and the possibility of renewal when life feels stuck or broken. Today, I want to share with you the powerful meaning behind Christmas Day, the meaning most people never hear, but everyone intuitively feels. And when you understand it, you begin to see that Christmas is not only a holiday, it is a moment of awakening happening inside you. Let us explore 5 truths that can transform the way you see this day, and yourself, forever. Every winter, the world slips into a kind of hush. The air sharpens, the evenings fall sooner, and the familiar warmth of daylight slowly retreats. Nature seems to hold its breath. For thousands of years, civilizations watched this descent into darkness with unease. There were times when people genuinely feared the light might never return, when the thinning sun seemed like a dying ember in the sky. And then, without fail, it rose again. Not in a sudden blaze, not in a dramatic display, but in the quiet, faithful way the universe always keeps its promises. The light returned gently, almost shyly, reclaiming the sky 1 degree at a time. This cycle became more than a pattern of seasons. It became a profound symbol recognized by cultures across the world. Long before the holiday took on the form we know today, people celebrated this turning point. The moment when darkness begins to shrink and light begins its journey back. Placing Christmas near the winter solstice wasn't accidental. It was intentional, poetic. It was humanity's way of saying, even in the deepest night, something is being reborn. But the more meaningful truth is not about astronomy or history. It is about you. The light returning after the longest night is a reflection of your inner landscape, your seasons of struggle, your moments of collapse and confusion. Everyone knows what darkness feels like. Not just the kind that comes from sunset, but the inner kind when life feels heavy, when hope thins out, when each day seems to dim a little more. There are seasons when pressure piles up, when grief hits without warning, when fear grips the heart so tightly you wonder if you'll ever feel whole again. Sometimes this darkness is loud, filled with stress, conflict, or heartbreak. And sometimes it's quiet, almost peaceful in a way that's unsettling, like a room with no windows. You wake up, but the world feels muted. You move, but something within you doesn't move at all. Yet think back. In every season of darkness you've ever lived through, there was always something, a spark, that kept you from collapsing entirely. It may have been a person who reached out unexpectedly, a phrase you read at the right moment, a sunrise that looked unusually beautiful, or even an intuition, a whisper from within that said, "Not yet. Keep going." It could have been so small that you barely noticed it at the time. And yet it was enough. Enough to pull you through. Enough to get you to your next step. Enough to keep a single thread of hope intact. That tiny spark is the same symbolic light Christmas celebrates. Not the light of decoration or ritual, but the inner flame that refuses to disappear, even when you do nothing to protect it. A flame that seems built into the very architecture of your spirit. It's astonishing how little light it actually takes to transform darkness. If you've ever walked into a dark room and struck a match, you know what I mean. That fragile flame trembling at the edge of a wooden stick suddenly pushes back the entire room. Shadows retreat, boundaries appear, orientation returns. And in that instant, the impossible becomes possible. Darkness, which once felt overwhelming, becomes gentle, obedient, almost soft in the presence of light. In life, the same principle holds true. A single moment of courage can illuminate an entire year of confusion. A single moment of clarity can dissolve months of worry. A single act of kindness can soften a heart that has been hardened for decades. One small step, just one, is enough to change the direction of the entire path. This is why the symbolism of Christmas matters. Not because of tradition or ceremony, but because it mirrors your own capacity for renewal. You may feel lost at times. You may feel worn out, discouraged, or forgotten. Life may have handed you seasons you weren't prepared to endure. But just as winter is not the end of the story, your darkness is not the end of you. There is something inside you. Call it your spirit, your soul, your awareness, that will not let you stay broken. Even when you cannot see the way, Something in you can still sense it. Even when you doubt everything, there remains a deeper layer that believes for you. That is the light returning. Slowly, quietly, faithfully. People often imagine transformation as a grand event, like fireworks or revelation. But real transformation is subtle. It begins with noticing the tiniest shift, your breath easing, your thoughts softening, a hint of peace appearing where anxiety once lived. It is the moment you tell the truth to yourself without judgment. The moment you forgive someone not because they deserve it, but because you no longer want to carry the weight. The moment you realize you survived something you once thought would destroy you. That is dawn. That is the sun rising. That is light returning after your longest night. Sometimes, the darkest seasons of your life are not signs of failure, but signs of preparation. Soil must darken to nourish a seed. A worm must be hidden for life to form. Nightfall is not an ending. It is the beginning of the next morning. Darkness is not your enemy. It is the stage on which your inner light becomes visible. Christmas simply offers a reminder, an annual whisper, that you are not defined by the shadows you walk through. You are defined by the light that keeps choosing to rise within you. And even if the world around you seems cold, heavy, or uncertain, you still carry something that darkness cannot extinguish. You may not feel it every day. You may forget it. You may doubt it, but it remains. A quiet, steady flame waiting for the smallest breath of attention to grow again. So when this season arrives and the world decorates its streets with lights, look at them not as ornaments, but as mirrors. They are reflections of what already lives inside you. They are symbols of your resilience, your ability to rise, your capacity to hope when hope seems unreasonable. Every light you see is a reminder of your own. And as the world brightens for a moment, however briefly, allow yourself to brighten too. Not in a forced, artificial way, but naturally, gently, the way dawn greets the world. Let it remind you that you are allowed to begin again, even if the beginning is small. Especially if the beginning is small. Because every flame in history, every sunrise, every return of light, began with something small that refused to die. And so did you. There is something quietly profound in the way great stories begin. They do not announce themselves with trumpets or arrive wrapped in grandeur. They slip into the world gently, disguised as ordinary moments, small spaces, and unlikely settings. The birth story so often spoken of during Christmas, whether one embraces it literally or symbolically, carries this universal truth: beginnings do not need magnificence, they need meaning. They need sincerity, not spectacle. They need the softness of humility more than the shine of perfection. If you imagine the scene described for centuries, a barn, dimly lit, smelling of straw, far removed from any royal chamber, you begin to understand the deeper lesson. Hope does not always step into the world through the front door. Sometimes it enters through a side gate no one is watching. Sometimes it arrives in a place so simple it would be easy to overlook entirely. Yet that is where possibility chooses to be born, in the quiet corners of life, where no one expects greatness to grow. There is a kind of wisdom in this, because life itself rarely unfolds according to our polished expectations. We tend to think purpose will arrive when everything aligns, when circumstances finally look elegant, when our environment is perfectly arranged, when we feel ready, confident, impressive. But life does not ask you to be impressive, it asks you to be open. It asks you to show up honestly, even if your surroundings look a little messy, even if your heart feels uncertain, even if the moment seems too small to matter. Some of the most world-changing realities began in places people would have dismissed: a garage, a dorm room, a basement, a kitchen table. Apple began in a suburban garage cluttered with tools. Amazon began in a rental house with a desk made of wood planks and two saucers. Harry Potter was written in a cramped apartment by a struggling single mother scribbling in cafes. Picasso's early sketches were done on scraps because paper was scarce. Even the greatest athletes started not with stadiums or sponsorships, but with driveways, parks, and borrowed equipment. The pattern is unmistakable: greatness grows in humble soil. It is the same with the human spirit. A new life, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, rarely begins in a moment of triumph. It often begins in the aftermath of heartbreak, disappointment, failure, or confusion. People reinvent themselves not when they feel powerful, but when they feel cracked open. It is in those raw spaces, those barns of the soul, where possibility finds room to enter. You might think your life is too cluttered, too chaotic, too ordinary for something extraordinary to emerge. But possibility has never required perfection. It has only ever required space, a corner of your heart where belief can breathe. Think of a seed: it begins in darkness, buried, hidden. overlooked, yet within that thin shell lies forests, gardens, nourishment, shelter, beauty. The seed does not demand a marble hall or golden soil. It only needs a place where it is allowed to begin. In the same way, the beginnings of your next chapter, your healing, your growth, your purpose, do not ask for applause or ideal conditions. They only ask for your willingness to plant the seed, even if the ground feels unremarkable. One of the greatest illusions people fall into is believing that life-changing momentum requires a grand gesture. In truth, it's the smallest actions, repeated with sincerity, that create the most profound shifts. A new habit begins with 1 minute of dedication. A healthier mind begins with one honest thought. A healed relationship may begin with one softened word. A bold journey begins with one step that no one else sees. You do not need to redesign your entire existence overnight. You need only begin. As simply and humbly as life itself begins its masterpieces. There is something tremendously comforting about acknowledging this. It lifts the burden of perfection. It removes the pressure to appear strong and polished before taking the next step. It allows you to breathe easier, knowing that every extraordinary story you admire started with an imperfect moment, where someone simply chose to try. Perhaps they didn't even know they were beginning something meaningful. Perhaps they were merely surviving the day. But the smallness of the moment didn't diminish the greatness it would eventually carry. Sometimes the very collapse of what you thought you needed becomes the foundation for what you truly needed. A failed career becomes the birthplace of a new calling. A heartbreak becomes the birthplace of emotional maturity. A disappointment becomes the birthplace of resilience. A closed door becomes the birthplace of imagination. Life has a way of using even the wreckage as building material for what comes next. It is often after the old story crumbles that there is finally enough space for a new one to be written. This is why the birth story resonates so deeply, even beyond religion or tradition. It is an archetype of possibility, choosing the humblest place to enter the world. It is the reminder that your purpose does not wait for perfect timing, perfect circumstances, or perfect confidence. Purpose simply waits for your yes, your willingness to take the next step even when the path is unclear. The barn, with its dust and its simplicity, becomes a metaphor for the human condition. It tells you that your life does not need to be immaculate before something sacred can be born within it. Your heart does not need to be spotless. Your environment does not need to be organized. Your emotions do not need to be perfectly aligned. What matters is that you make room, just a small corner of openness, where new possibility can come alive. Hope does not require luxury. Purpose does not require permission. Greatness does not require applause. They grow quietly, often unnoticed, until one day people look back and call it destiny. And so, the deeper message is this: your new beginning is already possible. Not when things become perfect, but when you become present. Not when life looks impressive from the outside, but when it becomes honest on the inside. Your next chapter is waiting patiently in the wings of your life, ready to emerge the moment you make space for it, however small that space may be. You are the barn. You are the birthplace. You are the quiet corner where something extraordinary is waiting to be born. Every year as the season approaches, something curious happens. Shops grow louder, lights grow brighter. Advertisements grow more urgent. The world enters a frenzy of collecting and purchasing, as though meaning could be bought, as though fulfillment could be wrapped and placed beneath a tree. Yet long before all of this, before the marketing, before the rituals, before the culture of accumulation, giving meant something profoundly different. It was never about the object in your hands, but about the essence behind the gesture. It was never about having, it was about being. A gift was once a symbol, not a possession. It represented what we carry inside ourselves, often quietly, often unnoticed. When you strip away the noise of modern celebrations, you uncover a far more ancient truth. The greatest gifts have always been intangible. They are the qualities of the human spirit that cannot be purchased, returned, or replaced. They are the gifts that remain when everything else falls away. Wisdom, compassion, forgiveness, encouragement, presence, love. These are the treasures that outlast seasons, outlast trends, outlast the very people who once offered them. When you think of the moments that truly shaped your life, they were likely born from these gifts. A piece of advice that shifted your perspective. A friend's quiet comfort during a difficult time. Someone choosing to forgive you when you didn't feel deserving. A moment of genuine presence from someone who listened, really listened. These are the gifts that alter destinies. There was a psychological study that observed something simple yet profound. Individuals who committed small acts of kindness for just 10 days experienced increased life satisfaction and reduced stress. Not because they received anything, but because they gave. It's remarkable, isn't it, that the human spirit becomes healthier when it extends itself outward. Giving, it turns out, is not merely moral, it is medicinal. It heals the giver even as it touches the receiver. Inside each of us is a natural longing to contribute, to uplift, to matter. When we act from that place, we are reminded of a truth that modern life often obscures. Fulfillment is not generated by accumulation, but by circulation. The heart is happiest when it is open. Yet many people hesitate to give the deeper parts of themselves. Not because they are unwilling, but because they are afraid. Afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of being rejected, afraid that what they offer may not be enough. Business also becomes a convenient shield. I'll reach out when I'm less overwhelmed. I'll encourage someone when I have more time. I'll share my creativity when I feel more confident. And so the most valuable gifts we carry, our insights, our compassion, our imagination, our tenderness, remain wrapped inside us, never fully expressed. But imagine, for a moment, the weight of those unshared gifts. The words you could have spoken that might have comforted someone on the edge of giving up. The forgiveness you could have offered that might have freed two souls at once. The encouragement that could have changed the direction of someone's path. The idea you were too hesitant to express that might have sparked innovation. The love you withheld out of caution that could have softened a hardened heart. What we fail to give doesn't disappear. It simply becomes a silent ache within us. Because deep down, every human being carries a longing to make a difference, however small. There is a quiet miracle that occurs when we give from the heart. Something stirs within us, something that often lies dormant when life becomes too centered on achieving or acquiring. Giving reconnects us to each other in a way nothing else can. It reminds us of our shared humanity. It removes the illusion that we are separate. When you give your time, your compassion, your understanding, you are telling someone, I see you. And that, in a world full of distraction and disconnection, is a profound offering. Think of the last time someone was truly present with you. Not multitasking, not half listening, not distracted by screens or schedules, but fully there. You probably remember it because presence has become rare, but its impact is unforgettable. Presence is one of the most powerful gifts a person can give. It tells another soul, you matter enough for me to slow down. You matter enough for me to listen. And sometimes that alone is enough to change a life. Christmas, beneath all its cultural layers, whispers a gentle reminder the world does not need more possessions. It needs more humanity. It needs more authenticity, more compassion. More people willing to give from the deepest parts of themselves. When you look at the state of the world, its loneliness, its division, its restlessness, what heals it is not another product, but another person willing to show up wholeheartedly. You might wonder, what do I have to give? What could possibly matter? But consider this, you have experiences no one else has lived. You carry lessons no one else has learned. You hold stories that could reassure someone who feels alone. You possess strengths you've developed through adversity. You have kindnesses that come naturally to you but feel rare to others. You have a perspective, a warmth, a humanity uniquely your own. These are not small things, they are the very things the world quietly hungers for. The real question is not whether you have something valuable to offer. It is whether you will allow yourself to offer it. Will you let your love remain unspoken? Will you let your wisdom remain unused? Will you let your compassion remain unexpressed? Or will you give what only you can give, even if it feels small, even if it feels simple? Because the world is not changed by grand gestures. It is changed by ordinary people giving extraordinary sincerity in ordinary moments. A comforting word, a patient ear, a small act of generosity, a moment of grace, a spark of kindness that ripples outward far beyond what the giver ever sees. When you ask yourself, what is the gift within me that I've been too afraid, too busy, or too distracted to share? You are already awakening something powerful. You are acknowledging a truth you have always known, that your life has meaning not only in what you achieve, but in what you contribute. That the brightest moments of your existence are not defined by what you received, but by what you gave. And somewhere, perhaps closer than you realize, the world is waiting for those gifts. There is something profoundly human about the way people instinctively gather as the year draws to a close. Long before there were holidays in the modern sense, before lights, songs, or decorated trees, people came together simply because the winter was cold and the nights were long. They gathered to share warmth, to share food, to share stories, to remind one another they were not alone in the vast darkness. It was an ancient understanding, when the world outside becomes harsh, the heart seeks shelter in other hearts. And though our world looks very different now, that truth has never changed. We often imagine ourselves as independent, self-sufficient beings. We pride ourselves on strength, resilience, and the ability to stand alone. But beneath all that armor, every human being is wired for connection. It is not a luxury, it is a necessity. We are meant to coexist, to intertwine, to be mirrors and companions to one another. Life in its deepest form is relational. We grow through relationships, we heal through relationships, and we come to understand ourselves through the presence of others. One of the most remarkable studies ever conducted, the Harvard study of adult development, followed people for more than 80 years in an attempt to understand what truly makes life fulfilling. After decades of research, the conclusion was clear and beautifully simple: the strongest predictor of a person's happiness and well-being is the quality of their relationships. Not their income, not their accomplishments, not the things they owned, but the depth of their connections. This finding echoes something ancient cultures have intuitively known: human beings thrive when they feel seen, supported, loved. This is why Christmas gatherings hold such emotional weight. They touch something primal in us, something older than any holiday tradition. They remind us that, despite the chaos, despite the responsibilities, despite the wounds we carry quietly, there is a part of us that longs to belong, to be held in the warmth of shared laughter, to be understood without needing to explain everything, to be surrounded by people who feel like home, whether through blood or through choice. But the essence of connection goes much deeper than sitting at a crowded table or exchanging polite words. True connection is a matter of the heart. You can be surrounded by people and feel utterly alone. You can be alone in a quiet room and feel deeply connected to someone who has touched your life. The real invitation of this season is not merely to gather in the physical sense, but to open yourself emotionally, to allow someone to cross the threshold of your guardedness, to soften the protective edges that life has built around you. We often carry hurts from the past, misunderstandings, disappointments, unresolved tensions. And without meaning to, we build walls. We tell ourselves we are safer that way. But the problem with walls is that they keep out what harms us, yes, but they also keep out what heals us. Love cannot reach through brick. Understanding cannot flow through stone. Connection cannot breathe where there is no opening. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to let someone in. To say the simple but vulnerable words, "I'm glad you're in my life." Those words are a gift. They require nothing extravagant, just honesty, and in speaking them, you offer something far more precious than any wrapped present. You offer your heart. There is a quiet miracle that happens in the space between two people when one person chooses courage over pride, tenderness over distance. It might be a conversation that finally clears the air. It might be a hand resting gently on a shoulder. It might be a long overdue apology. It might be laughter breaking tension that has lingered for years. It might be forgiveness, soft and unexpected, washing over old wounds like warm light melting frost. These are the miracles that matter. Not the ones found in spectacle, but the ones found in the moment two hearts meet without fear. When someone finally feels seen. When someone finally feels safe. When someone finally feels understood. Think about the people in your life. The ones you sometimes take for granted. The ones you miss but haven't reached out to. The ones who have supported you quietly. The ones you love but haven't said it to recently. There is a bridge between you and each of them. Some of those bridges are strong. Some are cracked but still standing. Some need only one gesture, one message, one call, one word to become whole again. And perhaps the greatest offering this season is not perfection, not harmony, not an Instagram-worthy moment, but the willingness to create connection where distance has grown. To reach out even if you're not sure how the other person will respond. To be the first to say, "Let's talk," or "I miss you," or "I'm sorry," or "Thank you," or simply, "How are you really?" The truth is, we are all carrying something: fear, fatigue, disappointment, hope, longing. We are all doing our best even when it looks uneven or clumsy. And when we recognize this shared humanity in one another, the barriers dissolve. Connection does not demand that you be perfect. It asks that you be present. It asks that you be real. It asks that you make room for another person's heart next to your own. So when this season invites you to gather, let it also invite you to open. Let it invite you to soften what has hardened. Let it invite you to reach out to someone you've been holding at arm's length. Let it invite you to forgive. Perhaps not because the past was easy, but because your future feels too important to carry old pain forward. Let it invite you to speak words that have been waiting too long inside you. Because in the end, the most meaningful moments of life do not happen in isolation. They happen in connection, in vulnerability, in presence, in the sacred, invisible space between you and another human being, a space where, if you listen closely, you can feel the quiet pulse of something miraculous. When you look closely at this time of year, you begin to realize that it isn't merely a cultural event, a holiday on a calendar, or a seasonal gathering. It is something far more intimate, an invitation, whispered gently beneath the noise of celebrations and rituals. It is the universe pausing for a moment to hold up a mirror and ask you who you are becoming, and who you are willing to be. And this invitation, though wrapped in symbols and stories, is ultimately about rebirth, your rebirth. There is a reason this day sits so close to the turning of the year. It feels almost intentional, as though life itself wanted to give you a moment to breathe before you step into another chapter. You can sense it everywhere in the quiet, just before the world erupts into resolutions. In the glow of lights that flicker against the cold, in the feeling that some kind of turning point is approaching even if you can't name it. And maybe that's why so many people feel strangely reflective during this season. They're not just preparing for a new year, they're preparing for a new version of themselves. You might think that transformation requires grand gestures, perfect timing, or a flawless strategy. But life rarely works that way. Renewal doesn't wait for ideal circumstances. It emerges from sincerity, from that quiet place in your chest where truth speaks more loudly than fear. Christmas, in its deeper meaning, is not telling you to create a magnificent plan. It is asking you simply to notice the stirring inside you, the part of you that is tired of carrying the old and ready to make space for the new, the part of you that wants to breathe again. Think about the moments in your life when you felt the need to start over. They weren't tidy. They weren't accompanied by trumpets or fanfare. Often, they appeared during a season of collapse, after a breakup, after losing a job, after a dream slipped through your fingers, after a difficult truth surfaced. But if you look closely at those moments, you'll notice something remarkable. The ending was a beginning in disguise. Life was clearing a space, even if it felt like it was taking something away. And in that freshly cleared space, you found yourself rediscovering who you were. Christmas, symbolically, is that space. It is the reminder that rebirth is not dramatic, it is deliberate. It happens quietly, the way dawn replaces night, slowly enough that you don't notice the shift until suddenly the world is full of color again. Renewal arrives in small decisions, reading one page of a book that awakens your mind, reaching out to someone you've grown distant from, leaving behind a habit that drains your joy, allowing yourself to rest instead of pretending you're fine. These are the first cries of a new life within you. There was a study from University College London suggesting that new habits take an average of 66 days to solidify, not because of intensity, but because of consistency. Change is not born from dramatic declarations. It grows from the gentle, persistent willingness to do something different. That willingness is the spark. That spark is the birth. And that birth is exactly what this season symbolizes. Think of someone who once felt stuck. Perhaps a person who had carried the same disappointment year after year. Maybe they believed life had passed them by, or that their story was already written. And then one day, without warning, a small moment shifted everything. A conversation with a stranger that awakened an old dream. A sudden understanding while journaling, a sense of clarity during a quiet evening walk. That moment didn't fix their life instantly, but it offered a doorway. All they had to do was step through. That step, simple, uncertain, imperfect, became the beginning of a new chapter. That's what Christmas whispers to you. Not that you must be extraordinary. Not that you must be perfect. Not that you must be ready. But that you must be willing. Willing to let an old part of you fall away. Willing to trust that life still has more for you. Willing to believe that possibility is not childish. It is necessary. Because the truth is, rebirth is not something that happens only once. It is a rhythm. A cycle, a lifelong unfolding. Trees do not bloom only a single spring. Rivers do not carve their paths in one day. Your spirit does not evolve through one breakthrough. It evolves through countless quiet renewals, many of which you only recognize in hindsight. And every year, at the coldest time, when nature itself seems to be sleeping, you receive this reminder again: you too can begin anew. You can release whatever has grown heavy, old grudges, outdated roles, versions of yourself that no longer fit. You can let your heart thaw after seasons of disappointment. You can dare to hope again, even if hope feels fragile. You don't need to see the entire path. You don't need absolute certainty. You don't need to erase every doubt. You only need to sense, even faintly, that something inside you is ready. Ready to rise the way light returns after the solstice. Ready to trust the way seeds trust the soil long before spring arrives. Ready to believe that your next chapter may carry a gentler rhythm, a deeper truth, a wider horizon. This season, with all of its symbols, stories, and traditions, is more than a holiday. It is a gesture of the universe reminding you that darkness is not final, that endings are not empty, that within you exists the capacity to begin again, not once but as many times as your soul requires. So let this be the moment you breathe deeply and decide that something new can be born within you. Not because circumstances have changed, but because you are choosing to change. Not because the world has cleared a path, but because you are willing to take a step forward despite the uncertainty. You are not done becoming. Your spirit is not finished unfolding. Your story is not settled. And Christmas, whispering softly through the glow of lights, through the warmth of gathering, through the quiet between the celebrations, reminds you of the truth you often forget: you can begin again. So today, as the lights glow and the world slows down, remember, Christmas is not only a celebration of something that happened long ago. It is a celebration of what can happen within you, right now. The return of your light, the birth of your purpose, the rediscovery of your gifts, the healing found in connection, and the rebirth of your becoming. This is the powerful meaning behind Christmas, the meaning often left unspoken, but always felt in the deepest parts of the human heart.